Good day, inderesTV viewers and listeners. Outokumpu published its second quarter results. Today I'm interviewing Outokumpu CEO Heikki Malinen and new CFO Marc-Simon Schaar. Heikki and Marc, how would you summarize the second quarter development of Outokumpu?
If I start, the year began with the political strike, which hit us really hard. We lost a fair amount of tonnage, and the year started really well, so I was pretty disappointed about it. But the second quarter was very much about a rebound. We were able to get our mills up and running, and by the end of the second quarter, we were able to recapture the market share we'd lost during the mid part of the quarter. So overall, a good rebound. And the results, 56, it's not a great number, but considering the fact that we had about a 30 million euro impact overall from the strike. So, it was decent. Could have been better, but decent.
Yes, and if I may add then from the financial side, what was very good for us in this quarter is that we could maintain our strong liquidity despite of the dividend payments of 110 million euros to our shareholders and also new lease liabilities. We were in a position to keep our net debt level on a low level, basically, and continue to have the strongest balance sheet in the industry.
Indeed.
Exactly. For a long time, the bright side has been that US market has been quite strong, but now it's again quite popular to talk about the probable recession in the United States. So how do you see the market development in the United States?
Right. Well, first of all, I want to be very clear that the long-term view we have about the US is really positive. I mean, it's a huge market, it's a growth market, population is growing, and they have a lot of capital, and also energy in the United States is very cheap. So there are many structural advantages that the country has, and you have trade protection. So a lot of good things. But the reality is today, with interest rates being over 5%, I mean, it's a massive burden on many consumers. And gradually, of course, because people live in the United States, everything is based on credit. You use your credit cards. So when it gets very expensive, people have to cut back on spending. So I really hope that we're going to see rate cuts here fairly soon. And if we see material rate cuts, then I think the consumers will start spending again.
Yes, but as you rightfully said, right, there is a lot of discussion. We have seen unemployment rates, we have seen credit card limits going up, but also we have seen the PMI, the Purchase Manager Index, now dropping below 50, which is really showing a subdued market environment.
Do you see that the end demand is very soft, or the customer is becoming softer, or has it something to do with imports from Mexico? How do you view the situation?
I don't see the Mexican situation being impacting us in the US that much. I think it's more of a local Mexican issue, if you think about what's going on there, and I can comment on that. I think in the United States, there's a very large group of distributors, which are very big players, and of course, if they are uncertain about the outlook, they will immediately slow down their buying. And this could be purely temporary. And when people come back from vacation in September, we could again see movement forward. But I think at the moment in the summertime with so much uncertainty, I think people are a bit cautious. And hopefully things will rebound here when the vacation in the US, it's Labor Day weekend. When people come back mid-September, hopefully things will pick up.
Looking forward to that. Marc, you mentioned the Purchase Manager Index regarding industrial development. So how does that affect Outokumpu in general? Do you see the industrial situation going in a weaker direction?
Well, as Heikki mentioned, that we see a somewhat lower demand, and this started basically towards the end of the second quarter, and then also prevailing now while we go into June as well. And I think the Purchase Manager Index is telling us that the demand is not that strong as mentioned before. It's a more hold and wait, where is the journey going to? And on top of that, when we particularly looking in the stainless steel industry, the nickel price has been dropping quite significantly during the last couple of weeks as well. And that is then also a bit of where particularly the distributors are a bit cautious on how much they are buying, and when they are going to restock again.
But still, very two things. One, whether it's Trump or whether it's Harris, both will maintain protection. So you're going to have these import barriers, which of course protect the US market and the local suppliers, which of course is good for us. And the other is, whether it's Trump or Biden, the IRA, which is this Inflation Reduction Act. So those type of investments by the government, they will continue. So you're going to have this significant amount of money, flowing into investments. So I think over the next 5 years, the US will continue to develop its own industrial base very ambitiously.
So cycles come and go, but these structural things, they last
I think the
longer.
secular trend in the US is positive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think for 1 year now we have talked about the economic recovery. I have so many questions about the macroeconomy, but I think we can agree that Outokumpu is very sensitive to the overall economic development. But we have talking about the recovery in Europe, but I think it's been quite lackluster. How do you view it right now?
I think there are two things. One is, of course, Europe is much more linked to China because we have a lot of companies, especially in Central Europe, Germany, as to mention one, who have gained a lot of value by exporting to China. And when Chinese consumption is very weak, and it's been now, I would say, since COVID, we haven't seen a strong recovery in China from the standpoint of consumers, okay? So that demand is missing. And of course, that is hurting Central European companies, which are many times our customers, right? And we were a big player in Germany. The other thing, of course, which impacts Europe is the Ukrainian war, inflation, and energy. And I think here, of course, Finland has one benefit, is that our electricity prices are significantly cheaper than they are in Central Europe. If I compare electricity prices in Finland, for example, to Germany, it's about half. So we have a structural benefit here in the Nordics. And that's why today what we mentioned and announced is that we are going to accelerate our program to improve our cost competitiveness in Europe further. We're number 1 today. We want to become even more competitive. And we've announced that we're going to start discussions with our employees in Krefeld in Germany on how to flexibilize our work. And then we will also look at how we can develop Tornio further to take advantage of these electricity benefits.
So the key question is when the consumer will revive in China. Is that so?
Well, I think it's a very fundamental. Over 1 billion people, with a still fair amount of spending power, which are now spending, and they're holding back. They're not spending, they're holding back.
Yeah. One part, the other part, other macroeconomic stimulus in other parts, such as Europe and the US, and the question on when does rate cuts come.
What are the main drivers behind the third quarter guidance?
Okay. Yes, I think first of all, we are not seeing the same impact from the strike as we have seen in the second quarter, though we are guiding for stable volumes going forward. Of course, Europe a bit more positive, Americas, as mentioned before, softening over here. Then on top of that, looking into our sales pattern and purchasing pattern, we see some positive impact from net of timing and hedging in here going forward. I would say that these are probably the main drivers, what we see then for the third quarter.
Actually, one question more about Europe. Heikki, in many interviews you have said that interest rates have to come down in Europe to see that Europe would have more recovery alongside China as well. So now when we see that the ECB is cutting rates, Euribor has come down a bit last few weeks. So when would you see recovery from Outokumpu's perspective when the rates come down?
Right. Well, if we look at COVID, for example, I'm not going to forecast what's going to happen in 6 months. But if we look at COVID, for example, when the significant amount of stimulus happened, I think it was March of 2000, we had the interest rates were cut and there was a lot of stimulus. So it took about 6 months and then we saw a significant boost in our order inflow. So there is a time lag. But I said at the moment, everybody's kind of holding back here and we need liquidity into the markets, we need capital injection and stimulus and lower rates. We live in an economy where you buy today and you pay later, and without credit, the societies don't function properly.
One question I had a couple of times is that, do you see signs that customers are ready to pay premium for Circle Green products, or has this weak economic environment hampered this effect? How do you see this?
Yeah, I think, of course, at a time when times are tough, people are very, let's say, hesitant to spend anything on, pay anything, right, extra. I just want to say one thing, and that's sort of, I haven't really talked about it in public that much, but I just want to maybe share here my own view, that I think, we have in stainless steel, we have this CBAM, the carbon border adjustment mechanism, hiilitulli in Finnish. I think that's a positive thing. But if I look at some other industries where they have the so-called regulatory framework for demand, for example, you have this blending mandate in biofuels, jakeluvelvoite in Finnish, where you basically regulate the demand side. Now what the European Union is doing is they're regulating the supply side. But if we had also demand side regulation, so customers are sort of expected to use low carbon, then we might actually see the green transition accelerate. And I personally would like to have more discussion about how are the regulators thinking about that type of a initiative.
Looking forward to that then. You have been operating at reduced capacity in the Ferrochrome segment. I think one of the furnaces are idle right now. When do you see enough indication from the economic recovery that you would open the furnace?
Maybe I can take that. Yes. So while we speak at the moment, we confirm our initial announcement that the furnace remains closed until fall of this year, autumn of this year. Nothing has changed to that plan yet, but we need to look into how the market comes out of the summer period and then have a look in it. But at the moment, there is no change to the plans, which we announced earlier.
So if nothing changes, you're going to take that furnace to operation again?
No. Maybe that is also maybe a good opportunity also to talk a bit about the strategic positioning of our ferrochrome operations and chromite ore mine as well. What we have been observing in the market in the last couple of weeks is that there is more and more interest from customers into green ferrochrome. And customers are prepared to pay also a green premium fee for that product. And when we then look into some external sources, statistics as well, and forecasts, we do see, and since quite a while, that ferrochrome production, high carbon ferrochrome production in South Africa is struggling with electricity prices, with other infrastructure challenges in the country as well. And if we then add also the carbon border adjustment mechanism, which Heikki mentioned before, there is an analysis out there, and analysts are forecasting that the exports out of South Africa into the European Union will reduce significantly, which really shows that our positioning of our ferrochrome, and especially that we have the cleanest ferrochrome globally with the lowest carbon footprint, 67% lower than the industry average, really shows and demonstrate the uniqueness and the importance of our ferrochrome operations.
So that should be quite valuable asset
Yes.
in the long run.
Going forward, it's a bit more looking forward.
Heikki, this is our last interview. You as Outokumpu CEO. So how would you summarize your last 4 years here as CEO? What have been the key lessons? And on the other hand, in which shape you're leaving Outokumpu to the next CEO and the next leadership team?
Right. There are obviously always a lot of lessons. Maybe if I highlight a couple, first of all, I think that the decisions we've taken on sustainability, which in many ways were quite bold, have proven to be the right ones. I think the numbers will show in the future, and maybe that's at the end of this decade or even at the early 30s, that we've made some very smart strategic moves to decarbonize. It's better to decarbonize now than to wait 10 years and do it sometime in the future. So I think I'm very confident we did the right thing. Secondly, when we started to transform Outokumpu, we took out a lot of costs. And I think the learning is that when you come in as a new CEO and you put together a new team and you have to transform the company, it's better to move fast. And we were able to do a lot of things very quickly, even though we were in the midst of COVID, and really improve the performance of the company and also then to get the debt down. We had some positive tailwinds from the economy and the markets, and we were fortunate that we were able to also take advantage and grab every euro that was available. We were able to capture and further improve our profits. And then finally, I think it's all about people. I've been very fortunate that when I came to Outokumpu, I was able to put together a great team. And ultimately, it's the people who do the work. And at Outokumpu, I think the commitment and expertise of people and the passion is quite unique. And I think without that, we would never be where we are today. So Kati ter Horst will start, in October. And I know Outokumpu will be in good hands with her and Marc-Simon and the rest. Company has basically no debt, so it's a good platform then to develop the company forward. So I leave, I think, with a fairly peaceful mind, if I may say.
Thanks, Heikki and Mark, for the interview. I wish you the best of luck for your new post as
you.
Neste CEO and for your new post as Outokumpu CFO. Thank you for the interview.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Have a nice summer.